For this example, we want to graph y equals -2 cosine of 3x plus pi. And in order to help us do that, we're going to find the amplitude, period, and the phase shift. So what is the amplitude of our function? Well, the amplitude is the absolute value of a, which is absolute value of -2. So the amplitude is 2. However, this negative, right, the negative in here is telling us that we reflect about the x-axis. So we're going to reflect about the x-axis, and we're going to start at a minimum value because it's a cosine function. What is the period? The period is found by 2 pi divided by omega. The value of omega is 3, so our period is 2 pi over 3. And then the phase shift, the value of the phase shift is found by taking phi. So remember, our equation is a cosine omega x minus phi plus b. So we have to take the opposite of this. So it's going to be -pi and then divided by omega for the phase shift. So -pi divided by 3. So our phase shift is -pi over 3, which tells us we're going left pi over 3 units. So when graphing these, we're going to treat these the same way that we normally do. Again, we're going to take the period and cut it into quarters. So 2 pi over 3 times 1/4 is 2 pi over 12, or pi over 6. So every pi over 6 units, we're going to be labeling these. So we have, I'll label it, let's do it, yeah, this is fine. 0, 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6 is pi over 3, 3 pi over 6 is pi over 2, 4 pi over 6, that's 2 pi over 3, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6 is pi, and then again, our phase shift is -pi over 3, so we're going to start on the left of the y-axis. So continue to go in our increments of pi over 6. So -pi over 6, -2 pi over 6 is -pi over 3. And that's actually going to be where we're going to start this graph. So if you recall, when you're graphing the with a phase shift, we're shifted to the left pi over 3 units. And so that's going to act like our new y-axis. And then we can just go from there and plot our points. So it's a cosine function. It's starting at, let's label this here as, we'll call this 2 and this -2. 1, 2, 3, -2. It's a cosine function, so it's it's starting at its minimum because its a value is negative. So we're going to start down here. And then at all the major points, we're going to go and just follow the same pattern. So at pi over 6, it's going to be an x-intercept. At 0, it will be a maximum. At pi over 6, it will be a minimum. Pi over 3 will be, sorry, not pi over 6, it will be an x-intercept. Pi over 3, it will be a minimum. That's the first cycle of our cosine function here. So it's like this. And then we could continue to graph more cycles if we wanted, and it would just continue to follow this same pattern. So 0, maximum, 0, minimum, and we would get another cycle here for this graph. And that would just continue on and on. And if we wanted to, we could kind of consider what would this graph look like if it was not shifted. It would be a positive cosine function, right? Because it's starting at a maximum here. Still has the same period of 2 pi over 3 and the same amplitude of 2. But it would be a positive cosine function.